So, all right. Well, I think we can go ahead and officially get started. Thank you to all of our participants for joining and being here. If you're on the West Coast, it's a kind of early, and if you're elsewhere on the globe, I think it's pretty late. We have a number of time zones represented here, and I'm very excited to talk about the work that is being done to stop this terrible problem of plastic pellet pollution. And one of the things about it is it's actually a problem for which there are some pretty straightforward solutions, which we will be hearing about as we get into our discussion. But before we launch into that, I do want to turn things over to Jamie to do a quick presentation to just like set up exactly what we will be talking about. What are these nurdles? What are these plastic pellets? And as we go on, everybody will have an opportunity to introduce themselves as well too. But thank you to all of our panelists for being here. And again, thanks to everybody who's showing up this morning. And with that, Jamie, I'll hand it off to you to set up the discussion that we'll be talking about.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen. Can you see some slides?
We cannot. Oh,
might be, have they appeared?
Yes.
Perfect. And can you see notes next to them?
Yeah.
Okay, just swap those. There we are. Is that looking good?
Perfect.
Brilliant. So, first of all, thank you, Jennifer, and it's a pleasure to be here today to speak to everyone about the issue of plastic pellet pollution. Just a quick introduction for myself. My name is Jamie Clarkson. I'm a project officer here at Fidra, an environmental charity based in Scotland and the UK. We focus on the issues of plastic and chemical pollution. One of our projects focuses on plastic pellet pollution and is called the Great Nurdle Hunt. And since 2013, this citizen science project has been mapping instances of plastic pellet pollution around the world. So first of all, what are plastic pellets? So plastic pellets are microplastics. They're approximately the size of a lentil, and they are the industrial feedstock used to produce almost all plastic products. They're a major source of upstream plastic pollution and are the second biggest source of microplastic pollution. They can be produced from virgin plastics, recycled plastics, and bioplastics. And as this map shows, it is a truly global issue, with each of these points representing where a nurdle hunt has taken place, and many of them indicating where nurdles have been reported, called plastic pellets as well, as we also call them. So first of all, we want to try to find what plastic pellets are. And these are some important points that we think need to be included in a definition of plastic pellets. First of all, they're an industrial feedstock of pre-molded material. They can be produced, as I've said, from virgin, recycled, or bio-based polymers, or a combination thereof. A definition of pellets should also include flakes and powders, which are also feedstocks that come under this industrial feedstock issue. And we should also be sensitive to other names such as resins and, as I mentioned already, nurdles. So they sometimes go under a few different names. So how do they enter the environment? Plastic pellets spill into the environment throughout the global plastic pellet supply chain. This includes at the point where the nurdles are made, during transport, including by ship, by road, or by rail, at the point of conversion of these plastic pellets into plastic products, during recycling of plastic waste, and at stages throughout the plastic supply chain. This loss is due to mishandling and mismanagement of plastic pellets throughout the global plastic supply chain, and results in over 445,000 tons of plastic pellets spilling into the environment each year globally. However, it's not just the places that produce plastic pellets that are at risk of pellet pollution. As this map shows, even countries that have no plastic pellet pollution are at risk due to the global network that is the global plastic pellet supply chain. And since INC3, the last round of plastic treaty negotiations, we've had two major nurdle spills in the US due to train derailments, as well as a massive spill of the Portuguese coast, which impacted northern Spain, particularly the Galicia region and beyond, which I'm sure you'll hear about a bit later on. So what are the impacts of these plastic pellets? First of all, wildlife can mistake these plastic pellets for food, ingesting them, which leads them to starve, suffer organ damage, and transfer the plastic pellets and chemicals into the food chain. As plastic pellets break down in the environment, smaller fragments of plastic are released, which can enter animal and human bodily tissues and disrupt their function. Pellets are made up of a cocktail of chemicals, and over time, these chemicals leach into the environment with detrimental impacts to human and animal health. Meanwhile, the surface of these nurdles also act as a surface for the accumulation of harmful chemicals, bacteria, and pathogens, which over time gather from the environment around the pellets. There's also an impact to communities and local economies. Plastic pellet pollution impacts communities' ability to and their right to a safe, sustainable, and healthy environment, while it can have devastating impacts to local economies and industries such as tourism and fishing industries. So what are the solutions to pellet pollution? Pellet pollution is a preventable source of plastic pollution. It's been estimated that 95% of plastic pellet pollution could be prevented through the implementation of mandatory best practice throughout the global plastic pellet supply chain. Plastic pellet pollution is a truly global issue and requires global action. International agreements are vital to ensure that the full global plastic pellet supply chain is addressed. For example, through the Global Plastics Treaty, which is got negotiations underway at the moment. Additionally, though, national legislation is essential. For example, in the US, to protect US citizens and the environment. In the case of the United States, the US is one of the biggest producers, transporters, and users of plastic pellets, both internally and on global markets. And this means that the US is at high risk of plastic pellet pollution and the impacts. However, national legislation could be implemented now and start to make, while this international agreements are still under discussion. Through robust international agreements and effective national legislation, this preventable source of plastic pollution can be addressed. And with that, I'd like to hand back to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And we will be hearing more about the terrible spills that have been happening and the efforts that's being done to collect data around there. But before we do that, I really want to emphasize what you said about it being a preventable problem. And one of the leaders in the United States on finding a solution to this preventable problem is Congressman Mike Levin, who's here, currently serving his third term in the House of Representatives, member of the House Committee on Natural Resources and the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. And as what I know about you, Congressman Levin, is that your top priorities include fighting climate change, protecting our natural resources, capitalizing on the economic benefits of a sustainable energy future. You have led legislation to transition the United States to zero-emission vehicles, to ban new offshore drilling along the coast of Southern California. Thank you very much. And to responsibly develop renewable energy on public lands. And for this purposes right now, this year, you introduced the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act to address plastic pollution in our nation's waterways and along our coast. And so thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for our opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Jennifer. And thank you to everybody at Surfrider for all you do each and every day. I can tell you it's been a tremendous pleasure to work with everyone at Surfrider for these last 5 years that I've served in Congress. There's just so many important issues to our district, to our region, but to really the entire world. And it's amazing to see folks from all over the world participating on this Zoom meeting this morning. When I first got to Congress, I was told that the likelihood of a major climate bill getting across the finish line was next to zero, that it would be virtually impossible. And don't mind the bells here. Sometimes Congress sounds like high school. They ring bells in the background telling us we got to do things. But nevertheless, sometimes the pundits and the analysts here in DC have said things are impossible. That's what they said about climate legislation when I first got here. But we worked at it. We were persistent. And then when the right moment hit with the Build Back Better legislation, which eventually became the Inflation Reduction Act, we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a lot of what we wanted. And we passed a major climate bill, the biggest climate bill in the history of the United States, the history really of any country in terms of its ability to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to help us achieve our goals towards net zero. But it's not enough. There's no question that we have to do more. And I really thank, again, Surfrider for everything. You mentioned Southern California offshore drilling. That was one that we got in the House-passed Build Back Better Act, but then it was removed by a certain senator from West Virginia who shall remain nameless in the Senate version. So we have to keep at it. Persistence plus opportunity means success. And that's the case with plastic pellets. I think that right now we've got a bill, as you mentioned, Jennifer, the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act that I introduced with Representative Peltola of Alaska. And I'm really proud that the bill is bipartisan. It currently has 55 co-sponsors, and we're trying to get more all the time. And we appreciate the hard work and the advocacy of organizations like yours and encouraging some of my colleagues to co-sponsor that legislation. And the bill simply would require the EPA to issue a rule that prohibits the discharge of plastic pellets into our nation's waters. And I appreciate the comments before about the critical role the United States can and really should play in terms of cutting down on plastic pellets. I think it'll protect all of our communities, not just in beautiful beach communities. I'm biased. I think we have the prettiest district in the United States. But whether it's beaches or wetlands, waterways, I think the ecological threats, the health threats being posed by plastic pellets must be addressed. And of course, there will be people in industry, and of course, the petrochemical and fossil fuel folks are going to push back on everything that we try to do. But we just have to stay persistent, and we have to find that opportunity. And again, persistence pays. So I really want to thank everybody involved. I want to thank Amanda Schaefer from my office as well. She's been doing a tremendous job on this and related issues. And the last thing I will say is when I got to Congress, Speaker Pelosi created the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. You've got to have that leadership and direction from the top. Unfortunately, when Kevin McCarthy became Speaker of the House, one of the first things he did is to dismantle the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. And some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle didn't like the name of the committee. They said Select Committee on the Climate Crisis was biased. And I said, look, you call it whatever you want. Call it whatever you like. But let's have that discussion. Let's have that debate in the halls of the House of Representatives for the public to hear from all perspectives about what needs to happen with regard to fossil fuels, what needs to happen with regard to air and water pollution, and to accelerate the transition to a cleaner energy future where we're having more energy efficiency and where we're growing food in a more sustainable way and producing electricity in a more sustainable way, moving goods and people in a more sustainable way. And of course, that didn't work. They didn't want to do it. And so they killed the committee. They killed the climate committee. Now, my hope is that these things, sometimes things go our way, sometimes things don't, but we've got to get that Select Committee in place again. The climate crisis is as important as ever. Your participation is as important as ever. And we don't agonize, we organize. And that's what I need from everybody participating on this Zoom, everybody involved in Surfrider. We cannot give up. We've got to redouble our efforts. And this Plastic Pellets Act is a key way to go about that. So with that, I thank you. I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Southern California or wherever you may be. There's some amazing places here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you this morning or evening if you're watching in the evening.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Really appreciate all of that. And I love the persistence plus opportunity equals success, because that's what we, sometimes doing this work, you got to remind yourself that success can be at the end of the equation. And so we really appreciate you being here and your leadership on these efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Okay. With that, let's move into chatting with our distinguished panelist. So just to give, and since we have such a global presence here, let's go ahead and do a round of introductions. And as part of your introduction, I would love if you talked a little specifically about how your organization got involved working on plastic pellet pollution. And then we'll get into deeper examples of what you're doing and what people who are attending the webinar can do afterwards to support your work. So I don't know if I ever actually introduced myself properly, but I'm Jennifer Savage. I lead the Plastic Pollution Initiative at Surfrider Foundation in the United States. We have global affiliates, including in Spain. So very excited to have Javier here to represent from beautiful San Sebastian. I have to admit, I'm a little envious of your location. So maybe I'll just start things off with you. If you could talk a little bit about how Surfrider Spain is working on plastic pellet pollution and what that looks like in the global area where you are.
Okay, thank you. First of all, it's a big pleasure to be here. I shared it before, but it's a really pleasure to be with all you. Also from connecting with Surfrider America, because as you know, Surfrider Europe was created after all the movement started in California. So it's very glad to be connected and the same topic with the same mission. I have to share that English is not my mother language, so I apologize if I have any mistake or something is not very understood, but please ask, write, whatever, because I will try to explain better later. So I am the coordinator of Survivor in Spain, a national, thank you. Thank you, Paulita. I'm coordinator of Survivor in Spain. I have been directly with Pellets issue since 2018, 2019, because we had a request from some communities, some people in the Mediterranean Sea with one spill of pellets that didn't stop because it was a continuous pollution from Tarragona. And that's why I was involved directly since last years, but Survivor Europe has been working to push for regulation, because at Europe you have the same issue. We don't have any kind of regulation. So for us, it's very important to find that regulation that will allow to find solutions for this pellet, which has the origin of on the company's activity. So that's why we are involved in this pellet action, and that's our relationship with the pellet spill.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And let's bring it back to, well, you're in Belize, Paulita, but let's bring it to you right now, because I know that the FiveGyres Institute has a long history of working on, obviously, on plastics in general, but you've really been instrumental in helping to move forward this legislation in the United States. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. Thank you very much. Can I get a thumbs up if y'all can hear me well? Okay, cool. Just making sure my mic's working. So hello, good afternoon to the East Coasters. Good morning to the West Coasters, and happy second cup of coffee, I guess, to the folks in the middle. I'm Paulita Bennett Martin. I oversee federal policy work for the FiveGyres Institute as their senior federal policy lead. So our organization, the FiveGyres Institute, or FiveGyres for short, takes our name from the large-scale systems of wind-driven currents in the ocean, right? So the gyres referred to in our name are the subtropical gyres, such as the North and South Pacific gyres, the North and South Atlantic gyres, and the Indian Ocean. So there's massive circular current systems where a lot of plastic accumulates and creates sort of this sea soup of plastics, if you will. And so our team has explored around 50,000 nautical miles in search of plastic pollution and understanding plastic pollution. We've done, I want to say 19, maybe 20 research expeditions at this point, and we regularly publish on that research. Some of that's been rather groundbreaking, global estimates. And we've built out a global network also of ambassadors who take action on plastics as well. So through all these activities, our goal is to inspire change along the way. And something connected to the pellets specifically is that FiveGyres really focuses on reducing harm from plastic pollution to people, right? And that's what plastic pellets represent, is harm, because we're seeing spills, we're seeing train derailments, we're seeing spills at sea, et cetera. And all of those small, already micro-sized plastics can wind up in the food that we eat. They can wind up in our waterways where we recreate and enjoy our time. And we really want to make sure that we're minimizing that. So a core focus for FiveGyres is microplastics. When it comes to policy work, we may track and support and endorse all kinds of legislation at the local, state, and national level. Yet where we really leverage our knowledge is around microplastics. So we look at issues that span the gap from microfibers that shed from clothing textiles to carpet textiles, right? But then we also look at microbeads that are intentionally added microplastics within our health and beauty care products. And we also explore alternative materials as yet one more area of innovation to move humanity away from single-use plastics. And so through all this science, we're able to inform policy design and really connect the issue with decision makers as well as society. And I think I'll stop there just to kind of let the other speakers introduce themselves. Thank you for having me here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paulita. And let's continue with our globe hopping. And I'll hand it over to my co-moderator, Jamie from Fidra.
Thank you. Just quickly. So I'm Jamie, I'm from Fidra, and Fidra is a Scotland-based environmental charity who focus on chemical and plastic pollution. And we've been working on the issue of plastic pellets since 2013. And over that time, through our citizen science project, the Great Nurdle Hunt, we've been able, and assistance from many volunteers, been able to map instances of pellet pollution around the world. This information is available on our website as well, and we really encourage everyone to take part, because all of this information helps in calling for action, both nationally and internationally.
Wonderful. And Diana, back in Spain, although you said you're in Wales right now, but based organizationally in Spain.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Diana. I'm a media director. I'm one of the co-founders of Noya Limpa, which is an environmental organization created by 4 women in Noya, in Galicia, in Spain. Our work focuses in reducing environmental pollution, which is one of the biggest threats to life, and regenerating spaces degraded by waste. And we were one of the first ones to raise the alarm about the recent pellet spill in Galicia with the Toconau vessel throwing 26 tons of nurdles to our coast. So I'll be happy to talk more about it, but I'll leave it to it, my introduction.
Thank you, much appreciated. And Jace, we'll bring it to you to complete our initial round. And I did have the privilege of hearing you speak a couple of years ago at the Texas Plastic Pollution Symposium. And, it's a very different world, that part of Texas, from what I am used to here on the California coast. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Good, great. Well, thanks, and great to see you again 2 years later. I'm the Director of Community Engagement over at the Hart Research Institute for Gulf of Mexico Studies that's on the Texas A&M Corpus Christi University. And I founded the Nurdle Patrol, and it was in an effort to try to figure out where nurdles were coming from at a spill that happened in 2018 on the Corpus Christi, Texas beaches. And initially it was going to be 3 or 4 of us going out and trying to figure out how long these pellets would be there, how long they would, how far they had spread, because we weren't getting any support from the state agency. They didn't have the manpower to be able to monitor, and they didn't know who spilled all those nurdles there, so they couldn't go clean it up. We initially thought it was a spill. It turns out this is just the chronic everyday problem of nurdles washing up in Texas and all along the Gulf of Mexico, actually. But it just so happens where Texas manufactures a lot of nurdles, and we have high concentrations up on our beaches. So we started up a social media page, a Facebook page called Nurdle Patrol, so that 3 or 4 of us could communicate on what we were finding, and we were going to go out monthly and just do 10-minute surveys. Well, within 2 weeks, there's like 300 people on there that were like, hey, we want to know if these nurdles are coming up on our beaches. And so we ended up getting some seed funding and being able to create a website that kind of automated everything. And before we did that, though, we really wanted this to be science driven, to where if there were researchers that wanted to use the data, or there were legal, lawsuits, litigation that was coming up, that they were able to use that in a courtroom. So we ended up getting a scientific publication on the methodology, and we've stuck to that. To where it's by hand only for 10 minutes at a time, so you can compare one place to another. And it has been used in a number of different lawsuits that have won using the data. So we are very critical of when data comes in, and we monitor it on a daily basis, and we've had to delete stuff that isn't accurate. But so Nurdle Patrol, we've worked with Fidra since 2018, whenever we first started this. And they've been great partners, looking at the global picture, whereas we are concentrating mainly in the United States and in Mexico, and also Canada. But we look at trying to make policy changes at the state level. And so there's been a number of bills that have been not passed. There's been a number of bills that have been sponsored in Texas and in other states that have not passed yet, but they have been initiators for making change. And Surfrider has been key in, especially the ones in Texas. Surfrider has been key in pushing those forward and helping to get those into a bill type format. Nurdle Patrol, since we're with the university, we're not actually able to create our own bills and work with legislators and stuff like that, unless we were asked, which we have been. So we rely on other organizations to be able to take the data that Nurdle Patrol has and use that to try to change policy. But okay, I appreciate being on here today and looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I've been I was in Texas last year for our Texas chapter conference, and the political climate working on plastics in Texas, those folks deserve hazard pay, in my opinion. That is a tough place to do that work. And it's been really amazing what Nurdle Patrol has been able to do with the research and what advocates have been able to do, across the board. It's been really heartening to see that. And with that, I'd like to get into more of a group discussion. And Jamie, please feel free to jump in and help with the facilitation. But one thing that I, when people are asking me, people who don't live in like the world we do, where it's like, all this information about plastics coming at them constantly, right? But they ask about this plastic pellet free waters bill, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, we need a law for that? We need a law for people to not, companies to not just litter? And I say, yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's like, if we went to the beach and we collected nurdles, and then as we were driving home or biking home, and we just threw them out onto the road, that would be littering. Like, we could get fined. And I think any state in this country, like, you could get a fine for that. But these companies, they can just do that as a practice of business and not face any consequences. So really excited about trying to change that. And definitely want to discuss the legislation more. But Diana, with having experienced this really terrible spill, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the what that looked like, what the experience has been, what the impact has been. And I invite everyone to jump in and ask questions too. This is not just me monologuing in between everybody else.
Where to start? So we organize these beach cleanups, and one of the days we started, we're doing a local place, very small place. We are raising awareness about plastic pollution. So one of the days, someone we read that some bags were appearing in our beaches, and people didn't know where the bags had. So there was a bit of investigation going on. So I read a lot about plastic pellets because of Surfrider, because I know in Spain, Surfrider Spain and Good Karma projects were working a lot with the pellet pollution in the Catalan coast. So I realized, I think they are pellets, plastic pellets. But there was not a lot, I have to say, not a lot of people know what plastic pellets are still. I think now things are changing, but it was quite unknown. Some people thought they were eggs, like fish eggs, and because of the characteristics they have, they thought actually they were natural things that should be in the beach. But yeah, when it came all these bags full of these little plastic pellets that I have some here if you want me to show, yeah, we started to investigate where are they coming from. And luckily enough, some of the bags had the name of the company. So we could start tracing. If we couldn't find the bags or know the name, I think the story will be completely different, if it makes sense. I think will be a lot of, we don't know, like very unknown and yeah, but they had to investigate it basically because there were bags with names of a company. So what we did from Noya Limpa were using social media, similar to what you mentioned, Jace, from Northern Petrol, to ask people, okay, did you find any bags somewhere else? So we created a map and started to point all the places where bags on others were appearing. And we realized that in a week, from our estuary, expanded completely the whole Galicia. So Asturias and Cantabria, which are other communities, started to be alert from it. So something that seems is a local problem, like you said, is not a local problem because we cannot stop the nurdles. So once in the environment, will spread and will spread, unfortunately, very quick, very easy, because they are very volatile. Like they are tiny, they will move all across. So that was kind of our journey. Obviously, you cannot contain. Once in the environment, it's impossible to contain. And we've been cleaning what we could, which is very hard and difficult.
Thanks, Diana. That's
kind of
a really
our
nice
story.
No, thanks for explaining like the work and what the experience of these massive spill has been. And I think that also explained how the spread leads us nicely to ask Safia a little bit about Surfrider's experience in the EU in terms of legislation that's being worked on in the EU at the moment around plastic pellets and experiences in Spain.
Yes, so it's interesting because this year was completely crazy. The Galician spill was very mediatic. It appeared a lot of media on the TV, on the radio shows, because it was close to election for candidates for the Galician government. So it made the change, actually, I think, because we have been working with pellet issue for years in Spain, and we never have this all attention from our job. So it's crazy. It's 26 tons of pellet spill on Galicia, but then when you look at the Spain context, it's almost 6,000 pellets lost every year, 6,000 tons, okay? So Galicia is just a small piece of what's happening at the Spanish level. We have been trying to push for Spanish regulation, but usually we don't have any kind of consideration or answer on that. So last month on March, there was a debate at Parliament. I'm not very involved in that topic, so maybe other colleagues of Surfrider Europe could explain more about that. But what I can see is that the maritime transport, the transport of the ship, which was not considered to be regulated for the pellet pollution, was under the debate after what happened in Galicia. So it means that what we did at the ground, at the roots, Noya Limpa did a lot on that, because Noya Limpa was showing to the public, raising awareness about what was happening in Galicia. What the entities did, what the association work on the ground helped to push for a possible regulation. There will be different steps for this regulation at the European level, but at least that the maritime transport was added to this debate, so it's very nice. Still a lot of difficulties there, because there will be a lot of exceptions of this rule. Some companies that are not big enough, will be out of the regulation, which is obviously a fail, because as you know, the chain value of plastic is regarding a lot of companies. So a lot of companies are connected between producers, transport, logistic, transformation. So if part of the companies are out of the regulation, then we have a problem, because not all are included, okay? But this was interesting. I can share also, I don't know if I'm talking so much, so just stop me in that case, but just to share with you that we have been working in Tarragona in the Mediterranean Sea, because 60% of plastic production of Spain is made in Tarragona, just an area of Spain. So we have been funding pellets for years, for decades, and companies are just like washing their hands that this is not a problem. So we started a legal case last year with Good Karma Projects and legal consultancy. So we are waiting for that, but it's first time that we did in Spain this legal case. So the Catalan administration, the local administration is reporting, is analyzing if some companies of that place are the cause of this pollution, and then they will have to find a solution for that. But regulation is very complex, and maybe we have a bit of light on this dark place, but still we have to push a lot. And usually it's association who push, and community and volunteering who are pushing for this job with a lot of efforts. And this is not fair.
Thank you for that. And it is a very uphill battle. There's so much that resonated with me with what you were saying, like companies, like, it's not a problem. Like we hear that all the time. And, you know, the efforts to pass regulation are so challenging. But also the fact that there's been more and more legal action that's taking place. We're definitely seeing a lot more legal action happening in California with different lawsuits against different, you know, fossil fuel companies and plastic manufacturers. So that has been heartening. And with that, let me turn it over to one of our other experts in the field, Paulita, you know, talking about legislative efforts and other kinds of advocacy work. I'd love to hear you weigh in on the path that you see as far as the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act and any other efforts that are being made to stop this problem.
Sure, thank you. So the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act, that's the big thing right now in the US, right? We've had this bill. I want to draw attention to the fact that we've had this bill in Congress. This will be the third Congress it's been introduced in. However, the important thing to look at is the amount of support. The last time this bill was introduced, we had, I think, 12 co-sponsors on the bill, and now we're closing in on 60 co-sponsors pretty soon. To me, that signals that there is a spike in awareness. Sadly, that awareness, a lot of it's tied to catastrophes, right? Like in Pennsylvania and in Ohio, we have these derailments happening with millions of plastic pellets, pre-production plastic pellets flowing freely into nature and waterways. So the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act would really, it would not prevent companies from continuing to produce the products that they make, right? Let's get that straight. What it will do is it will create accountability for polluters. And that's something that is, it's a cornerstone of conservation and business practices across the United States. We have the Clean Water Act for a reason, right? And that's what this bill does, is it uses the Clean Water Act to promulgate pellet spills. So one of the things, I think I saw a question in the chat from somebody asking about what the obstacles are. What does the petrochemical industry have to say about it? What do companies have to say about it? Well, one of their main arguments is we don't need new laws, right? That we already have a law on the books to deal with pollution, right? And they're absolutely right. However, it's not being used to deal with the pollution yet. And that's what this bill does, is it directs the EPA to use the Clean Water Act to protect our communities, our nature, waterways, et cetera, from pellet spills. Right now, without a law in place, you've got states trying to figure out how to handle this. When spills occur, what happens? It's a nightmare because there's no responsibility, right? You've got the local government, the municipal governments, the state government, and the federal government all saying it's not our responsibility, right? So then we put the onus onto local organizations to have to file lawsuits against polluters. And yes, a lot of those lawsuits are being won right now, but that doesn't seem equitable. That seems like additional pressure on people across the country. And we need to make sure that we're protecting people from these things. That's what the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act does. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to move this bill forward, to pass this bill. I'll also flag, and I'll try to make this quick, that the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act is also part of the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is a comprehensive bill that addresses plastic pollution from the point of extraction all the way downstream when it's already polluting our waterways and nature. So this legislation it's key. It's important. It's simple and straightforward. And it basically levels the playing field. Why should other companies have so much responsibility and regulation levied upon them to not contaminate our waterways, to not harm our communities, but the plastics industry doesn't have to do the same thing? That's not correct. So thank you to Congressman Mike Levin and to Senator Dick Durbin for introducing this legislation. And now it's time for us to work together to pass it and continue asking our members of Congress to get behind this bill.
Thanks, Paulita. That was a really good overview of the bill there and why it's so important to keep pushing through. I'd like to sort of staying on that sort of theme of US legislation, invite Jace to chime in and sort of explain a little bit of what he's experienced working in the Gulf of Mexico and legislation around the states that he's been working on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of the things that really kind of changed things in Texas was there was a lawsuit by Diane Wilson and against Formosa Plastics, and this would have been in 2019. She's a fourth generation shrimper, and she was going out. She saw that Formosa Plastics was discharging plastic pellets into the waterways. She went out every single day for 3 years, and she had whistleblowers that used to work for Formosa. So they all got together and they went out and they filed a lawsuit under the Clean Water Act. And the maximum that you can sue for is like 165 million. Well, they ended up settling for 50 million and they settled for 50 million because Formosa agreed to put something into their stormwater and wastewater permit language, and that is 0 plastic pellet discharge. And if they were not able to meet that within, I think it was like 6 months after the lawsuit, then they would be fined on a daily basis if they were found to be discharged. So all of the money that was, all 50 million went into a trust, and the trust distributes that money into education, restoration, and research projects around that area in central Texas. So Formosa Plastics was in central, on the coast of Texas, but kind of in the central part of the coast. But that one thing of saying 0 plastic pellet loss, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which is the state agency that's supposed to be regulating the companies that produce plastic, they ended up going in and changing some of the language within their permits, their industrial permits that these companies have to get whenever they're going to, manufacture. And it's been sort of this ripple effect where I know Surfrider has been putting in Texas NERDL bills. And so the Texas legislature only meets every other year. And so this last legislative session, which was in 2023, they submitted, it was for a second time, Texas NERDL bill, but it had that language in there of 0 plastic pellet loss. And, the bills were killed, but they have made some changes into their language, which now says they need to prevent plastics from being discharged from their facility in stormwater and wastewater, which is better than the language previously, which was that they were allowed a trace amount of suspended solids. And because these NERDLs are not considered hazardous material, then they could be considered as dirt or aggregate or something like that, like suspended solids. So, they were actually allowed to release under the old language. So this has helped. That one lawsuit has really helped. But, like Paulita was saying, we can't expect for citizens to have to go out there and regulate these companies. It's time. If Diane Wilson wouldn't have won, how much money would have come out of her pocket for this, who's a shrimper. So it really needs to go to that federal level. That's what's really exciting about this Plastic Pellet Free Water Act, is that it would be at the federal level. And if that passes, then I'm not sure, the states are going to have to do something within their permits to be able to help regulate the discharge of these pellets, and probably not just the permitting, but it's also going to have to go to inspections and fines. I mean, there's a whole series of things that have to go into this to ensure that, pollution isn't happening. And I know firsthand that this is 100% preventable because we have a plastics company here in Corpus Christi. That's a brand new facility they started producing in 2019. And we sampled before they started producing and after, and we have yet to find any pellets outside of their fence lines. And it's because they built the facility in knowing that they did not want to pollute NERDLs out of their fence line. So it can be done, and there's a gold standard that has to be met to do that. But that's somebody we can point to say it can be done.
That's amazing. And that is always so helpful to show that it can be done, right? Like sometimes you ask polluters to stop polluting and they're like, oh, there's just no way around it. There's just nothing that, and so, which is clearly usually not the case. And so it is always so helpful. And, the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act is giving us such a good opportunity here in the US And I also wanted to make sure to mention the Global Plastic Treaty. The next round of negotiations starts next week, and it's the fourth of 5 negotiating sessions. Right now, you know what I'll do is I'll just paste in the chat what the current language is about pellets in the zero draft. So there's a long way to go, frankly, with the plastic treaty, and it'll be interesting to see how much gets done. But one of the reasons we wanted to have this webinar was to make sure that people knew about the Global Plastics Treaty and the opportunity to address pellets within it. The United States is not the most inspiring player in the negotiating talks. Hate to break that to anybody, but we're pushing hard. And one of the things that we really want to do is keep this language that is in option 2. If folks are interested in getting involved in the US on this, the very best thing you can do is reach out to the Biden administration and say that you want a strong binding treaty, that you want to see plastic pellets language remain in there. We can drop some links in the chat and send information out, follow up. But I wanted to give everybody else too an opportunity to offer a call to action, whether it's on the Global Plastic Treaty or on the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act, or on efforts that are happening in Spain or across the world with the Great Nurdle Hunt and everything else. So it's 9:27 right now, but maybe we can quickly do a final wrap-up call to action moment, if that's okay with folks. And Jamie, since you're next to me on the screen, I'll just hand it to you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, as you say, the Global Plastic Treaty is a really important opportunity to really address plastic pollution, not just plastic pellets, but many things, but we're focusing on pellets today. And it's a real opportunity for robust international agreements which can really address the global plastic supply chain, as we discussed in the introduction, because plastic pellet pollution is a global issue, and as you know, outlined by others on the call, even if an environment they spread, it can happen far away from where you are and it will still impact you. So this is really something that requires global action. And we have quite a few resources available on our website, which I'm sure we can send a link to in the follow-up emails and what have you. And we also run our Great Global Nurdle Hunt each year, which is, like I said, helps gather data that we can take to policymakers and industry and really show the scale of the issue and really drive for those solutions. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, which will be taking part which will be happening this September, between the 1st and the 30th of September. And I would like to pass on to Jace because he's next on my screen.
Okay, great. Well, action's my favorite part of things. And, you know, I give presentations all the time and people are like, what can we do ourselves? You know, I'm just one person. Well, it's like, you know, of course, reduce the amount of single-use plastic that you're using in your own life. But if it pertains to nurdles in the environment and you want to show there's a problem, you can't just go up and say, oh, you know, we have a problem here, we need to do something about it, without having the data to back it up. And so we ask people, get involved with the Great Nurdle Hunt or Nurdle Patrol. You know, have a way that you can visualize the problem in your area. Go out for 10 minutes, sample at your favorite beach, and if there's nurdles there, you know, depending on your location, try to go upstream. You know, we're trying to figure out where this stuff is coming from to make the case that there's a problem, so that then we can develop the solutions through policy. And so you have to be able to make that case first. So I guess my action item to people is, you know, get involved with the Great Nurdle Hunt or Nurdle Patrol to show there's a problem, and then let's go out, work with our political leaders, our state agencies, and try to get to where regulate these companies. Oh,
Oh, you got muted, Jace.
oh, sorry.
How about
Okay. Oh, here, Paulina, I guess. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Great recommendations, everyone. I'll pull it back to policy and suggest that in addition to these other great recommendations, there's nothing better than some good trouble. Contact your members of Congress. Ask them to support the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act. I know Jen Savage will send the info out afterwards. There's probably a beautiful petition ready for you to sign. But yes, staying in touch with your decision makers because they need to hear from us. And if they don't hear from us, then plastics won't be a priority, right? That's what I have to say about it. Thank you again for having me here.
Fantastic.
Diana, I'll move it over for you. Sorry.
I would like to suggest, and it's a clear example like Noya Limpa, that local grassroots initiatives are key, crucial. Sometimes we think we are a little tiny thing in the middle of nowhere, but actually, you know, we can see as an example of what we achieve, you know, coming from a very small place in Noya. Now everybody knows even America about Noya Limpa. So I think that is crucial, you know, to be involved in the local problems, volunteer with organizations close to you, you know, because everything starts in the local level before going any further. So yeah, engage with your community. You will meet people, you will know your problems in your local community, and will address that. And then, you know, that will help to address more global issues, but start small to reach big, kind of. And do I need to ask someone or you do it?
Oh, well, that brings us to Javier.
Yeah,
Yes,
Xavi?
just to add, because you did say amazing options, I think sometimes you can also make a donation to become member of an NGO association, because I'm thinking in our legal case, sometimes it's very expensive to start to work with the consultancy. You have to work a lot of time to work on that. So sometimes is another way to help those entities who have experts or people involved in this job, because it allows to be more powerful, be more strong, and have more capacity to reach more people. Plus, all your options which are amazing. I repeat again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everybody for participating. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate all the work that you are doing literally on the ground and in the highest, you know, offices in the countries that we are all representing today. And I do want to give a shout out to our person in the background, Katie Day, who has made everything run so smoothly and did so much of the work to make all of this happen. So thank you very much, Katie. You are appreciated as well. We will include information and a link to the recording in a follow-up email, and definitely hope that everybody who attended, who's not already involved in some way, chooses at least one course of action so that we can collectively put an end to this problem. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Muchas
Thank you.
gracias.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.